Champaran Satyagraha 1917-1918. Champaran is a place in Bihar. Here also the farmers, that is the peasants, are ill-treated by the European planters, and they introduced a system called tin katia system. Under this system, the peasants have to cultivate 3% of their total 20%. The land is divided into 20 part, and in that 3 part they have to cultivate indigo, and they have to sell it to European planters at the rate fixed by the planters. This make the peasants liable to unlawful extortion, அதாவது பணம் பறித்தல். தேவையே இல்லாமல் என்ன பண்ணுறாங்க, the European planters get amount from the peasants and they oppress, they control the peasants. Here Mahatma Gandhi took up their cause of the Champaran people, and by that the government appointed an inquiry commission. In that, Mahatma Gandhi was also the member, and then the grievances problem between the peasants and cultivators was inquired, and ultimately at last Champaran Agrarian Act was passed in May 1918 to protect the peasants. The next is the Kheda Satyagraha 1918, and it happens in the districts of Gujarat. Kheda is a region in Gujarat, and it continuously faced famines and agricultural fail in 1918. But the British government, but the officers of the government make the people to pay the full land revenue, which they are unable, and this caused a great problem among the peasants, and they started no tax movement in Kheda district in 1918 under the leadership of Mahatma Gandhi. And Mahatma Gandhi called for a satyagraha, and in spite of all the problems, the people of Kheda joined Gandhiji for the satyagraha movement, and this was an unprecedented, and government had to bow, that is bend to a settlement, come to a settlement with the peasants. And during this time, Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel emerged as an important leader in our Indian freedom struggle. Muplak Rebellion 1921. It is the area in Kerala, that is Malabar region. The farmers were exploited by the Hindu zamindars and the British government, which was the cause of the revolt, and this is our third detail. Okay, the peasants got momentum from the Malabar Conference, and they started to struggle in 1920, and here the cause was on demand, and the cause was to protect the farmers and demand a separate legislation for regulating, that is framing landlord tenant relationships, that is to protect the farmer from the landlords. In August 21, the rebellion got aggressive against the zamindars, and in the beginning stage, the Muplak peasants started to attack police stations, public office, communication, and houses of oppressive landlords and money lenders. And by December 1921, the government ruthlessly, very hardly suppressed the Muplak rebellion, and in that 2,337 Muplak people were killed, and 1,650 were wounded, and more than 45,000 captured as prisoners. See how horribly they had fight against the British government. And the next is the Bardoli Satyagraha 1929 to 30. In 1928, the peasant of Bardoli, that is in Gujarat, they started their agitation under the leadership of Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel to protest against the British government land revenue system by 30%. And the persons are refused to pay tax, and they started no tax campaign from 12th February 1928. So they are not ready to pay the tax. Many women also participated in this campaign. And in 1930, the peasants of Bardoli, it is an area in Gujarat, okay, they rose to a man refused to pay taxes and faced the auction sale. That is, the land of that particular person was made auction. Auction என்னக்கன்னு ஏலம் விடுறது. And the eventual loss of almost all of their land. டோட்டலாக இப்போ ஒன் பை ஒன்னாக ஒவ்வொருத்தர் தான் இதை பண்ணிடுவாங்க இல்லையா, பட் ரெஃப்யூஸ் டு சப்மிட் டு த government. So என்ன பண்ணா, the whole people refused to surrender. However, all the lands were returned to them when the Congress came to power in 1937. அவங்க ரெஃப்யூஸ் பண்ணாங்க, கவர்மெண்ட் எடுத்துக்கிச்சு. At last in 1937, this land was returned to that Bardoli people. Thank you, Kanna.